Welcome to What Matters to People, uncovering stories, trends, and connections that unlock greatness in brands.
Hi there, welcome back. This is Dave McCaughan with my good buddy Steve Sowerby, and welcome back to our podcast series, which is all about what matters to people. And we've been doing different series of podcasts for a few years now. This one really is inspired by a discussion about life stages versus generations. So Steve and I have worked together in different ways for nearly 30 years. And over that time, I think I've influenced him a bit in that we have come to believe that when we talk about Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, it's a little bit of rubbish, right? And fortunately, I'm starting to see some of the major market research companies around the world sort of draw the same conclusion. What's more important for marketers is to think about life stages. Yeah. Those different things that we all go through. So we all go through the teenage these days. So we all go through, a lot of us go through building a family, for example. We all go through what have come to call new life builders, which is that sort of period in their 60s, 70s, maybe 80s, right, when you're discovering a new life. But what we wanted to talk about today was a stage in life that actually is relatively new. So if you think about it, for hundreds of years, people were kids. In the last 100 years, we discovered there was a teenage, right? Then you entered what we call career builders, which was our last episode. Please go back and watch it if you haven't seen it. And career builders was basically that period in your 20s and early 30s where you were probably still single. You were thinking about getting a partner. You were thinking about getting married. Maybe you were thinking about things like your career mostly and building your career. And you were thinking about things like finance, mortgage, and do you start, all that sort of stuff, right? So you're sort of that settling down, not having the family yet, but that period. And then you would move into what we call family builders, which will be our next episode. Usually, historically in the 20s, now more often, sometimes around 30, when you literally do settle down and have a kid or kids or whatever. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But the big difference is that what we've noticed over the last 20 or something years is more and more people across many, many countries making the decision to either not have or put off having children into their 30s and 40s, that they're living what we might call an extended 20s period beyond their 20s, when they are about work, about maybe lifestyle, et cetera, and not really focused on that family issue. And we're noticing that now extends into their 30s and sometimes in their 40s, and I'm sure that what we're going to see is it extends into their 50s in the coming decade or two. Now, I have to tell you that the actual term extended 20s is not my idea. It's our guest's idea, Hadi Hendrawan. So today what we're going to do is talk to Hadi, who is a Bangkok-based, originally Indonesian AI scientist who's become a good friend of mine in the last couple of years. And we're also going to ask Aim, who is behind, not on screen. She's our background producer, but she literally is sort of living that extended 20s lifestyle with her husband. And so we wanted to get her point of view as well. So, Steve, maybe you want to start with the questions.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about it because we've been reading about these symptoms of extended 20s, if you like, over the last years. People in their 30s and 40s moving back into home with their parents. I think there was also some report from Italy that some parents actually took out a legal case to force the kids back out of home.
That was extreme. That was some poor Italian woman in her late 60s who had to go to court to get a judge to force her 40-something two sons to leave home. I mean, they refused to leave home in their 40s, and she was just going nuts. That's the extreme version of this, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we see it. I mean, obviously, we're all living here in Thailand, and the three of us, Hadi, myself, and Dave, of course, we're all in Bangkok. So we see it very much in terms of young couples not having kids and turning and having pets, for example, instead of as surrogates for children and going. So this whole area of extended 20s is really fascinating and is an important dynamic that as marketeers we have to take seriously. So Hadi, I know that you came up with this concept. So where did this idea come from? How did it inspire you?
Okay, yeah, I might be needs to be philosophy and going to science a little on how
Okay.
this start. Yeah, so this start when I was in, I think, like 14, and then I think like everyone is searching what is the meaning of life.
Yeah.
But if you are born in Asia, let's say like in Indonesia, where everything is more traditional, more conservative, and then suddenly like the choice is already offered, like, okay, this is like your path of life, this is your kids, youth, and then that one, the career builder, and then you marriage, and then you grow old, and then and then someday you will pass away because of the aging or disease or something in there.
Yeah.
So it's like something that is offered, but then I'm quite rebellious or reactive to that idea, and then saw like the multiple angles that have like a different concept in there.
Yeah.
But then I found like a profound moment when I learned about a cell, of a biological cell, the cycle of life of the cell. It's like they spend the whole energy and the purpose of their life is to replicate.
That's true.
From one cell to two cells in there. And we might like copy that idea into our life, but I don't think that is the purpose of our life. That's why like I'm trying to counter the cell cycle idea where the idea our life is just to replicate with something else. And then in the end I come up with this extended 20s because it was a reactive idea to reproduction.
Okay.
But after like I think like 20 years plus keep learning about this, then I move from the stage of reactive to become integrative. I mean, this path is possible not only for people who let's say live a single life or have family, not have children, but actually like this path is like available for everyone.
Everyone.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
It's just like today we have more choice than in the past. So people can pick which one is their happiness in life in there. Yeah.
No, it's true. It's very true that in Asia, very much your life was mapped by sometimes by your parents, certainly by society. There was expectations. If you were a certain status, you would go a certain direction. If you're another status, you would go in another direction. But this rebellion against cultural standards is something. So it went because of a personal journey that you went through as well.
Correct.
Oh, wow. And Aim, sort of just reflecting on that for you, tell us a little bit about your personal journey and why you now are behaving to some areas as one of these extended 20s.
I think, well, unlike Hadi, I didn't think about philosophy when I was 14, but I think when I started working, right, my career, I think it's like in Thai family, it's the same thing. You finish school, you find a good stable job, and then get married, have kids, and so on and so on. But I really enjoy working. I really enjoy working since I was young. I spend a lot of time at work. Even I'm not at work, I used to spend a lot of time on screen, just looking into what I can improve. That's because what I like. And then after I got married, and then I moved to Chiang Rai, the north of Chiang Rai, I found a shift in life because, well, one of the shift was my husband asking me, what is your hobbies? I actually don't have a hobby. My hobby is centered around work. And yeah, I did a project. One project came to mind was about cancer. The cancer project we did. And it's just like, that's a shift in me that actually work is not everything, it's happiness. And there are other things, other areas in life that you can enjoy and you can find joy.
Right.
And this is where I am. So I'm now a freelancer working as project manager and market researcher. And
Wow.
like a geek. Yeah.
No, it's really interesting. So extended 20s. It's if in terms of the deep motivation is really around this pursuit of happiness for yourself, not happiness that has been prescribed on you, but happiness in terms. So there's, and I think this is an interesting thing, and we'll ask you, Hadi, in terms of, what are the if you like the differences between the traditional path and an extended 20s. But it seems to be that there is no set path for extended 20s. It's not about, we just following another norm. There is very much, and it's really down to that individual pursuit of happiness. Mm-hmm. Give me some feedback on that. Is that somehow the direction that these extended 20s are going? Okay,
so there's one fact that is like happening to every people in the planet, which is like aging. Right. That's why we have these life stages, because aging is real. It's not like
aging. Yes,
but that is also relative. I mean, like people age in the different timeline. I mean, the degradation is like different between people. So from that relative situation, I believe aging is not something that you need to accept. It might be something that it can be changed in the future. So some people view aging as a disease, as a chronic disease that someday we can cure. Yeah. Or someday we can reverse the aging, which is reverse is harder actually. But for someone who, let's say, why we call it extended 20s, because like it is like the maximum biological growth that we have, because it is like around age 25, and then after that we start degrade, we start aging. Some biologists say because like that is the purpose of life. So during that, when you're going up, when you grow, is also related to the reproduction cycle. Yes. So let's say after 25, it's like, oh yeah, the reproduction cycle is done. So you are start degrade in there. But yeah, someday we can cure aging, and then it will change many kind of things. So I will relate to Dave about the career builder. So I found like something interesting to connect. So the career builder is like you start doing fulfill the economic pressure. Yes. You want to counter that. You want to achieve like stability, like Aim said, in there. And then after that, actually, if you see people in the retirement or the new life builder, like Dave, is like people want to have an impact to life, like Aim said. Yeah. But actually, you don't need to wait. You can move that timeline to the 30s or 20s in there. The thing is, the key is like where you achieve that economic stability, or even like if not stable, you still can make the impact.
Yeah. That's been the interesting thing that, and literally this conversation started about last year, the year before, when Hadi and I first became friends. But what struck me straight away was, I've been as Steve knows, I've been studying demographics for nearly 40 years, and the issues around demographics in regards to marketing, but in a broader sense. And one of the things is that, we know in Thailand is a good example, and AIM would have lots of friends who at 30, 31 don't have kids. But when Steve and I first moved to Thailand in the mid-90s, the average woman around 25, 26. Now it's pushing up to around 30, 31. I was in Japan last week. The figure there is getting close to 32 for the first child, if you have a child. But for example, about a quarter of people now in their 30s and 40s not only don't have children, but are not planning to ever have children.
Yes.
So, but what part of that is connected to the change in aging, as Hadi said. If you think about it, when I'm sure when Steve's mother had Steve, I can't remember how old she was when she had you, but my mother had me at what the time was considered a late age. She was 35 when I was born, and I was her first child. And that was quite shocking to people that in her mid-30s she'd be having children. Now we accept that having children in the mid-30s is quite normal. We accept having children at 40 is relatively normal. And we hear increasing of women having children in their late 40s, right? Now, that's not just biological, that's economic as well, because women have taken on, as Amos said, as sort of, sometime in your 20s, maybe, or around 30, you go, well, life is not just about this, this, and this. It's like, let's move to Chiang Rai and take a different lifestyle, right? Great place if you can do that. So what this extended 20s does is it encapsulates a whole bunch of other things that perhaps governments and businesses are still finding hard to get their head around. They still live in a very old model of the life cycle, as Hadi said. They still can't get their head around that a 60-something is only just beginning a new stage of life, right? They can't get their head around that women in their 20s and 30s, for example, are making all sorts of different choices about work, careers, hobbies, balance, all those sorts of things. And men too, obviously. And so this is a really interesting dynamic of the way things are changing. I wanted to ask Aim a question before I go back to Hadi, right? Aim, when you look around and in the Thai marketplace, right? So, you're looking around and you're seeing in the Thai media what's going on, the lifestyles of the rich and famous in Thailand, but ordinary people, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you see women in their 20s and 30s being represented in the media? Is that changing?
Changing from how
traditional things. Yes, from like when you were growing up. I'm sure on all the TV shows that you or your mother watched when you were growing up, women were married by the time they were 25, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had, and probably in those days they probably had an average of about 3 or 4 kids, right? And I'm sure almost none of your friends, maybe none of your friends, have 3 or 4 kids, right? Because it's very rare these days, right?
Yes, very rare. Yeah. I think first that there are still many single friends my age. I'm close to 40. There are still many single friends.
Wow, you look great.
Thank you. Yeah, and if they have kids, they might want to have more than one, but they can only afford one. So once they have one kid, that's it. So most of my friends have just one kid. And what I see different on the media is back in the day, as I mentioned, we see people in 20s, maybe early 30s have kids, but like the celebrity here in Thailand or the face of the media, people, it's harder for them to have kids, and it's okay. How they're presented is okay if you have option, if you use other option when you later in life. And if you can afford it, you can freeze your eggs and then use later in life if you are not ready yet. Yeah. And it's okay.
Yeah. I remember Hadi and I were having a conversation about all this last year, and he used the term denying biology. And I don't know if you remember using that term, but it always stuck in my head that we now live in a world where aging, for example, we're putting off things. We can change some of the dynamics. We can change different things. And so in a sense, what we thought of the normal biological cycles are still there, but we can already manipulate them a bit, right? And that's increasing, I guess. And that's a lot of the clients that Steve, you and I work with are in different aspects of, in a sense, manipulating biology, changing lifestyle through that.
Yeah. Hadi, can I go back to sort of what inspired you and build on that, because you went through that philosophical sort of discussion with yourself and said, I'm not prepared to follow the traditional ways. I see many more options. What are other reasons or motivations that you've noticed now that you've sort of been focusing a little bit on this extended 20s? What other elements are inspiring people to take these different paths from the very traditional paths that perhaps their parents took?
Okay. I think today is like we see like people start asking questions about the traditional things, and then but I saw like, I think in the past, in the age like 18, people already have like an answer. Okay, I want to do this for life. But today, even like 25, 30s, they still not have an answer. And even they are very honest, say that I don't know what to do in life. Or I don't know what to do for my future. There's a lot of people like asking that question. I mean, the homework is always there when you were born, and then you grow up. That is a question that you need to answer by yourself, and no one can help you answering that question.
Yeah.
You need to figure out by yourself, and yeah, I mean, like extended 20s is like one of the option in there. I mean, like because we want to have the same energy for the whole entire life. I mean, like to keep the energy and the looks of the 20s, even like further for 30, 40, 50s, hopefully like can more. Hopefully like technology enables that kind of things. Yes. Or even like can reverse for someone who already like in the late age in there. But for someone who's still young, I mean, like in 20s, perhaps this is like an option for them. I mean, if they can keep the biology, that's mean like keep healthy in there, they can slowing the aging in there. Yes. Or reverse at some part and then wait until the technology ready.
Okay. All right. So it's about that, making those long-term career or life choices is somehow delayed, because before we used to make those choices, and then when we got to our mid-40s and 50s, regret that we'd spent all of our life in something, in a job that we hated. Right. I remember talking with people who basically arrived there and said, I've never really wanted to be an accountant, and yet I have suffered being an accountant for the last 15, 20 years. So people are really rejecting that and saying, I'm going to choose something that I really love to do, will make me happy, but I don't know what that is yet. And do you think technology has had a role in creating that, maybe too much information, too many options, too much, do something for yourself, too much about your individual happiness, that somehow maybe those people are starting to get confused about where they want to go and what really will make them happy?
Okay. There's something interesting that I just study. So recently we built agent, the AI agent or autonomous agent, and then we try to understand what is philosophically agents mean. And then it's related to freedom, and then it's related to free will, how we exercise our free will in the world or in the physics that is all deterministics in there. I don't go to the detail of that. Okay. But regarding to the information and agents, actually we have like two behavior. First, we want to understand. So also I have like a new term. It's called the stairway effect. So imagine you walk on the stairs,
Yes.
and then actually you walk automatically after 1 or 2 steps in the stair. You walk automatically. Your brain is like creating the next future of the stair. So, and let's say the stair height is different, you will trip
Yes.
because it doesn't match the expectation. So I call it the stairway effect. Actually, those stairway effect is working in all life that we do. We try to predict something. We hope it's like the same height stairs, but height stair, but it's not working like that. So what we do when we face the uneven heights is we try to understand this. Then we're collecting the information, and then we try to understand what is the heights, and then we match our mental model to that new heights that we understand. But there's another thing. When we know something and then our mental model is not matched with the reality, there's another way beside understanding is to change the reality. I mean, to cut down the height of the stair or to make the heights increase, depend on which one is more comfortable to us. That's what we do. That means like when we know and we change something, we make more chaos actually. And imagine like there is like 8 billion of people, and then they know more, they can change more, and then means like more chaos. And then I mean information, it's at one thing, it's make us drown into the sea of the data in there, which too much and overwhelmed. But on the other side also like create more chaos because like it's enable more people to do something on that. And then by meaning of that chaos is like there will be like something unpredictable or something that we can predict today, but tomorrow we cannot predict anymore. That's something that is like interesting if you connect like the information and that one.
Wow. So AI could potentially, maybe through a tool that you're working on or other tools, really help people to, I don't know, collect and map and predict, and in some cases change their expectations. Because you're absolutely right. I think sort of we do 80% of our life on autopilot. All right.
Yes.
It's our limbic brain effectively that is driving so much. Remember when we learned to drive, we were doing everything consciously. You know, turn the wheel this way, that way, the indicator, when we had gear sticks, change the gear, etc. But then when we've learned to drive, you get in the car and your limbic brain just takes over and you're just doing everything on autopilot until something dramatic happens. Someone breaks in front of you. Actually, your autopilot is already starting to brake for you. And then you realize, oh my God, I need to brake even harder. Yeah, that's really interesting. So AI can really help us, give us tools that can help us to navigate this.
Yes, correct. That's one thing. Like AI can help us more understand because it process more information than us. But on the other side is we try to make AI to make decision today. And then decision become more autonomous. That's mean like don't need human intervention in there. That's mean like we make AI to become the part of that agent of the chaos in there.
Chaos, then, no. Right.
Yeah. I mean, like, imagine we already have 8 billion of people, and then, I don't know, perhaps another 1 billion of AI that decide something in there. So we cannot imagine what the world next after that.
Wow. Aim, you're passionate about research. This is one thing I love about working with you. You're always exploring. And of course, we've been working together nearly, is it 14 years? I keep forgetting.
12 years,
12 years. And so in those 12 years, even though AI was, of course, available, it was not as popular or as accessible as it has been over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. How has that changed a little bit in terms of your behavior's attitude towards researching and discovering new things? Are you using more AI tools now in your research?
Yes, I use AI tools for research. Definitely, it helped me with time management and craft idea. But it's not just you ask AI and just copy and paste. I think you need to learn how you need to have a structure in your mind of what you are looking for. And if I wouldn't just take one AI platform, I'll use different and then analyze and then use
Yeah.
it for the research. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think still high tech is good, but also high touch talking to human observation is still a great part of doing research as well.
We mustn't forget that. Actually, talking with people is still an important element of research, because then we can get a lot of that emotional element, which at the moment AI is starting to deliver that.
Yeah, it is. It is. But, it's interesting you raise that, because, and I was in, as I said, I was in Tokyo last week having different meetings, meeting a lot of people. And I want to talk to Hadi about some of the issues that came up separately. But one of the things I was talking to a lot of people about was artificial intelligence, right? And there's a perception, I think, in America, for example, that Japan has fallen way behind in AI terms, right? Now, from the Japanese perspective, they just say, no, we're on the cutting edge, but we're just on a different cutting edge from America. So the American model is like GPT, and the belief that AI is all about these tools that simplify a lot of data and can reorganize it for you and say it back as a document or as a voiceover or whatever, right? Whereas where Japan sees that as like peripheral. They see that as a bit of fun and games. What they're really interested in is the way in which they can use AI can be used by organizations to Hadi's point, to collect 8 billion minds and predict what organizations should do, right? Which, of course, is true everywhere, but it's just interesting. There's different perspectives on where this is going. But one of the other things I found interesting was discussions around, again, go back to the idea of the extended 20s. And the way we started this off, right? Before we went live, we were joking about how do you change your name on the bottom of the screen and stuff like this, right? And there's always these perceptions that, like, an old guy like me won't know any of this stuff, and a young woman like Aim would know exactly how to do this stuff, right? But that's all sort of changing as well, right? And one of the things we're sort of seeing is that there are more and more AI tools that are helping people like me do my work in research like AIM, but also just lifestyle tools. But there's also those things. So when I look at, like, Steve and I both have children around the same age, late 20s, early 30s, and they're more than aware. They're more than aware that what they're doing for a living now probably won't exist in 5 or 10 years' time, right? But the actual thing they do day to day, but what they have to do is concentrate on learning about the tools that will help them adapt into different jobs or different lifestyle issues as they map through their 30s or their 40s, etc.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting, because Hadi, how do you think this mindset of extended 20s is going to impact on businesses? How do businesses have to change in order, first of all, with their employees, or perhaps increasingly with those that are even on, not on fixed-term contract, or maybe on fixed-term contracts, maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. How do they have to now start thinking about their employees and their customers now, given that extended 20s is, becoming quite, evident as a significant life stage in lives?
Okay, I think I will focus on one industry. I mean, like, we can elaborate more on other industry, or we can extrapolate. So let's say about insurance, about financial planning or asset planning. So this is like very interesting because it's just happened in the last 2 years in my life. I mean, like, so people from like a big institution who do the estate plannings, global institution, like their sales is like coming to me and then, hey, do you need like a retirement plan and then inheritance plan and blah, blah, blah about the estate planning. But then they don't have like the idea of what kind of future that I want to have. And then, and then when I speak with them, okay, what's your idea about this estate planning? And then, it's a very traditional way to do it. Like, okay, you will retire at this age, and then you have like investment, like 25 years, start from the age 25. So by 50, you have like this saving, blah, blah. So it's very not answering what I need, definitely in there.
I noticed a good friend of mine who advises insurance and companies in Australia, financial institutions, does market research for them and specialises in the retirement issue. And of course, what she's easily identified is that in the Australian context, she says there's 5 types of retirement, right? And she says the age in which those are like people who basically say at 65, give up work, go live in a beach shack and just fish all day, right? And then there's people like Steve, and Steve is sort of in his early 60s, but you can see Steve in 10 years' time still doing, he's not going to stop, right? We talked about that, and we'll talk about that more in the next episode, right?
Yeah.
But the reality of it is, what she's pointing out is that those institutions, again, to be able to use platforms, AI platforms, etc., to come up not with 1 or 2 scenarios for AIM's future or Dave's future or Hadi's future, but literally hundreds of scenarios, because there are literally going to be hundreds of ways in which, AIM, if AIM's in her 30s and her husband, think about, well, it's hard to plan 10 years out now, right? It's very hard. And so who knows in 10 years' time what the situation will be, what the financial things will be. And the old idea that you've got to save so much to get so that at 60 you can live comfortably for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Who knows what that means,
Who
right?
knows that is. It's almost, we haven't talked about the new life builders stage yet, Dave, but I think that there's going to be a lot of parallels between the attitude of, extended 20s and the new life builders, in terms of, I'm not going to follow the, retire at 65 and wait to die, basically.
Right. And this is where, when Hadi and I started talking about all this, and when I first explained, I think, the life stage thing, and I was explaining in the context of new life builders, and I always say, humankind, for 99.99% of its history, there were 3 life stages. You were a kid, you were an adult, and then you were dead, right? Or you were near dead, right?
Near dead. I was going to say dead isn't exactly
right. Literally the last couple of years,
the last stage of your life.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But then suddenly, about 100 years ago, we invented the teenage as a 4th stage of life stage. Because if you think about it, before the 20th century, in every society, at 12, roughly, puberty, you're an adult. That's it. And now suddenly you're saying, no, from 12 to 20, no, you're not really an adult, right? You're this in-between thing. And then from that, we developed this idea of new life builders, which was to say, well, most people, if they get to 60, are going to live to be 80 plus. Yeah. So for most of that, they're going to want to do stuff, right? And we'll talk more about that in the New Life Builder episode. But this is where Hadi really helped me understand exactly what you're saying, Steve, which is that now we have a big shift where people don't automatically go from this to this to this.
Yeah.
And the extended 20s is a sort of generic, I guess, general term that Hadi came up with, but it's all about that the shifting possibilities are just so many and so great.
Yeah. And no, because you're right. I think it's really become clear for me in just talking with you, Hadi, that this is about a mindset rather than a set of behaviors. And as companies, traditionally, and many are already doing that, is being adaptable to the behaviors that come as a result of that mindset. So, for example, I would say, the staying with a company for 25 years is going to be very rare, very rare. If you stay for 2 years or 3 years, yeah, that's probably long enough.
You got to be careful there, Steve, because Aim just said she's been with you for 14. So,
oh yes, but we've had different
you don't want her to leave tomorrow. So
No, but it's true is that before you used to look at someone's CVs, and if they had like 3 or 4 companies in their career where they were there for 2 years, 2.5 years, 1.5 years, you would put a question mark against it and go, this guy is not reliable.
Yeah.
All right. What went wrong, we would say in the interview? What went wrong in these jobs where you only stayed for 2 years? Whereas now it's going to become a norm in the extended 20s, that people are going to make career choices. They're going to decide to move into different projects, maybe do multiple careers at the same time as well. I see this very much also here in Thailand, where you have people doing 2, 3, 4 different careers at the same time. Hadi, is that something you're noticing in some of the friends that are effectively exhibiting this extended 20s?
Yeah, I think that will be like the trends. I mean, like you say, like because the rate of changing is faster today.
Yeah.
So I think like no one like keep the job for 10 years now. Perhaps like 2 or 3 years they will jump again. And then the perception also changed. I see like 5 years ago when you do something like that, yeah, there will be like a bad or negative. So you put that in the LinkedIn like 2 years or less than a year or 1.5 year, then it will make a bad perception.
Yeah.
But today is like it's okay now.
Yeah.
To do something like that.
Yeah.
Even like with this AI hype for the last 2 years, you jump every 3 months. It's still acceptable now in the area of technology.
In the area of AI, right?
Yeah.
Getting people on for a project, and then the project finishes, and then great. Okay, that was fantastic. I learned a lot. We did some great work together. I'm going to go and jump into something or take some time out and travel.
Hattie's a good example. If I don't talk to Hattie for 2 months, automatically when you meet a friend or something, you say, how you doing? What have you been doing lately? What normally we would mean within the normal context of what you do, what little project are you doing? Yeah. In Hattie's case, it's like he's doing something totally different, right? Yeah. And he's jumped to a different company, or he started his own thing, or he's doing something, And I guess this is the thing now. And it's the same with AIM too. I mean, I guess the good thing, AIM, is that working with Steve and, working with me a bit and stuff is because it's project based. Right? Yeah. Every week or two when we're talking together, it's a different thing, right? And we jump from this week, Steve and I are doing something on animal health, right? In a couple of weeks' time, it'll be, I don't know, supplements for people over 80 or something,
So no, but I was going to ask you exactly the same thing, Aim. I mean, how does that work in your mind, that sort of expectation of different experiences rather than jobs as you go through?
Yeah, I was going to say, when Hadi and you mentioned about the job, right? Back in the day, it will be job stability, and it's kind of predictable. Like you will ask, like, what do you do? Then you will say your role and the rank of your role, and that will show your achievement. It's like the benchmark of success. But right now, it's more of what can you do? What can you do? Of like not just your what do you call it, your position. But if you jump around, many different jobs give you different opportunities and different experiences. Yeah. Either different industry or different roles. And that I think is more important nowadays when you seek for somebody to work with. Because I think the title is one thing, but sometimes it's just a title. Is what can you do within those? Yeah,
that's true.
Very good. Well, we're almost getting to the end, and Hadi, I think we wanted to ask you something very specific in terms of recommendations. And by the way, Aim, I'm going to ask you the same thing as well after we've asked Hadi. But Hadi, what would be the 2 or 3 recommendations that you would give to marketers who are trying to connect with this life stage of extended 20s? What would be your recommendations?
Yeah, I think because we are start in the awareness stage on the extended 20. Yeah, so we need to try to find more data. I mean, the marketers need to try to find more data in their customers. I mean, there must be a data that show that there's extended 20s in their customers. I mean, some industry like the skincare or aesthetics. I mean, it's like very well aligned with this, but other industry also still open the opportunity to have like extended 20 in there. But back to the main core desire that people have, I think like the theories say that we have like health, wealth, and relationship as the core desires. So the message should be changed on those 3. I mean, in the term of wealth, I think like I gave the example about the insurance. We need to change from something like okay, you have like retirement, you have like inheritance into something like a more shorter cycle. I mean, I don't want to wait like in 50 or 60, but perhaps like only like 5 year or 10 years on the asset planning on that, and then to get like the result today. And it's about the shorter cycle in the end. About health, I think the message should be changed from the curative side. I mean, we always like wait until we get sick and then we need like a treatment to cure. But today, like people want more preventive, like how we slow down the aging, how we reverse some damage by the activity that we can do every day, instead of waiting the sickness or disease coming in there. And meanwhile, in the relationship, I think you mentioned like in the past, perhaps like okay, we have a relationship with our kids or with our partners, but then okay, the definition of partner can be changed also, including like pets in there, yeah, and others, yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much. That was really, really terrific. And Aim, what would be your recommendations to marketers who are seeking to build closer relationships to the extended 20s life stage?
I think, first of all, we need to understand the mindset of the extended 20s, because as you said, it might not be just the number of years, it's the mindset, right? And then dive into different categories. But just not focus on just one category. Once you find that, and you can still, you can also like look into the category around their interest. And then secondly is to make it personalized. I think extended 20 years, if you know how to talk to them, really personalized level, you can, it's like what Hadi just mentioned. If the insurance company talk to Hadi and then just present something very traditional, this is not what Hadi wants, for example, and then you disconnect with me. Yeah. I think lastly is pretty much relationship based. Don't come talk to this group or any group really just when you want to sell, but continue the relationship with them, asking like where they are in life right now. When do I connect with them? Because if it's the mindset, it could shift, but you can still, and keep engaging with them.
That's great. That's great.
Very good.
Really good.
Thank
really
you,
good.
both of you. No, I really, just on that last point, it's something which I'm passionate about. And I talk a lot about companies. Don't just try and sell me a product. Sell me how you can add value to my life, not just with a product, but with information, inspiration, ideas, creativity, whatever the case might be. Add value to my life, and I'll talk to you. If you just try and sell me a product, you're just going to be the same as every other company, and I'm really going to really be very skeptical and initially reject you. So very interesting.
And that's a great way to finish, Steve, because as I said at the beginning, our intention with this series of podcasts is to focus on what matters to people by looking at through these life stages. And I think what the consistent thing of our previous guests, I know from our upcoming guests for the rest of the series, is that at different life stages, what you really have to do is, as Aim said, understand the people and personalize to that, right? Now, yes, that might mean understanding that Hadi likes this music and Aim likes a different music. But the more important thing is getting to understand what people think is important in their lives, what matters to them. And I think Hadi's 14-year-old self coming up with this philosophical thought has got us all thinking, really. And so, thanks for that. He's no longer 14, by the way. He looks it, but he's not, right? So I think that's a great way to finish. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Aim, for joining us on screen this time.
Thanks, you
Hadi.
for having me.
For anybody listening,
Thank you.
I know that Aim will, when we're publishing this, will in the notes perhaps give a link to Hadi's email address inside if you want to reach out to him or to Steve and I and talk about this more. Thanks for your time. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to What Matters to People. Subscribe, share, and join the conversation. Until next time.